Well, we begin with an extraordinary moment. The president of Russia acknowledging a CNN report, essentially confirming much of it and pretty bluntly saying Russia knows how to kill people. Let me map this out for you. You are looking at President Putin at his yearly press conference, taking hours and hours of questions from reporters. Ostensibly, at least this year, this session comes after a recent investigative report by Bellingcat and CNN uncovered evidence that Russia's Federal Security Service trailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny for years. Well, Mr. Putin called that report itself a trick made up by Western intelligence to hurt Russian leaders. He didn't deny the main substance of the report, that Russian agents trailed Navalny. That is an incredible thing for a man of Mr. Putin's stature to concede. Now, you will remember that Navalny, who openly and flagrantly opposes the Russian president, was poisoned with the nerve agent Novichok in August, nearly dying. Mr. Putin disputed that in an extraordinary way, that if Russia had wanted to kill Navalny, they would have been able to finish the job. Russia knows how to kill people effectively, is what he said. The Kremlin repeatedly denies any involvement. Clarissa Ward was the CNN correspondent who worked on this investigation, and she joins me now from Moscow. Well, you had to believe that there would be some sort of response in the end. What do you make of what we heard from the Russian leader?
Well, I think it's sort of extraordinary, Becky, because even though it took a couple of hours to get to it in that long press conference, it does essentially amount to a partial confession. Here you have President Vladimir Putin saying that Alexei Navalny is essentially a stooge of U.S. intelligence agencies, and that as a result of that, it would be natural that he would be followed, but that doesn't mean he was poisoned. So not denying the sort of nub of our reporting in terms of detailing the movements of this elite team of operatives who trailed across the country following Navalny on more than 30 trips over a period of 3 years. He's basically saying that that's justified because it appears that Navalny works with the United States intelligence forces. Take a listen.
There's actually nothing surprising about the fact that these implanted stories are taking place. They have always been and will always be. This kind of informational confrontation is taking place. They were before.
And he went on to say in another part of that answer, talking about Navalny, that doesn't mean he needs to be poisoned. Who needs him anyway? If they, talking about the FSB operatives, wanted to, they would have probably finished it. As you said, Becky, as you paraphrase it, if they wanted to kill him, they would have done it. So kind of an astonishing answer, really, there from President Putin, not quibbling at all with the basic facts of this investigation that Bellingcat and CNN have worked on. And now, I guess, just leaving himself the possibility that it wasn't possible to prove that these agents were, in fact, the ones who actually poisoned Alexei Navalny. And I should add one more thing, Becky, that I found extraordinary. President Putin never mentions Navalny by name, never says his name. He had 2 questions where he had to talk about Navalny. The first time he referred to him as the patient in the Berlin clinic. The second time he would own
that Navalny works for U.S. intelligence in that press conference. Has Navalny responded to these comments?
Yeah, he has. He put out a sort of, his thoughts on his Facebook page, essentially saying that he also read this as a partial confession, and he believes that the final vindication will come soon, that there will be proof that will emerge that these operatives were this very same people who poisoned Alexei Navalny, and he feels almost, it seems, that the president is walking into a trap by admitting that this team of FSB operatives were trailing him for so many years. What Navalny also points out, though, which is very interesting, that Putin does not address, okay, it's all well and good to admit that the FSB was following him, but why were these FSB operatives who were chemists, who were toxicologists, who were doctors, who had access to poisons, the expertise to use them, and who were in regular contact with the Signal Institute here in Moscow that CNN and Bellingcat have determined has been researching and developing Novichok? That part of our investigation, he did not answer to at all.
Clarissa Ward is in Moscow. Clarissa, thank you. In that same press conference today, Mr. Putin also accusing the American government of staging a massive computer attack against itself, which Washington blames Moscow for. Now, this data breach targeting several agencies in the U.S. federal government and possibly more, scoping out to be one of the largest cyber attacks on the American government in years. Well, let's see dust settles. We are learning more. Now, Washington blaming Moscow for the attack and under pressure to respond. Let's hear what the Russian president said about that.
Look at what is written at the beginning. An unknown anonymous person pursues goals we do not understand. And then it becomes apparent who is behind this anonymous person. What do I mean? It is written that this is about the same as happened in 2016, at the time when criminal Russian hackers associated with Russian military intelligence hacked the emails of members of the U.S. Democratic Party. Well, here you are. This anonymous person seems clear to me, who called these hackers criminals associated with Russian military intelligence. It's the Department of State and the U.S. intelligence services. They are the authors, in fact. In any case, it was done on their instructions. This is quite obvious.
Well, the U.S. is trying to understand the scope of the damage from this breach and figure out vulnerabilities that have allowed it to happen.